Well, hello and thank you for joining me for another iTWire video. Today I am with Tameez Sunderji. He's the Director of Digital Strategy at TIBCO. He's on my right, and on my left I have Jordan Walsh from Whispir, the Product Manager and Business Analyst. Welcome to the program.
Thanks very much.
Now we're at a special Gartner event today, but before we get into that, I thought I'd just ask if you could both tell us a little bit about the companies you work for, a little bit about your own roles in those companies, and if we get to it as well, how you started working together some years ago. But yeah, we'll start with you, Tameez.
Sure. So TIBCO is a company that's in this technology space. We help companies transition to this new digital age and help them with their digital transformation efforts, primarily through interconnecting everything and providing them the tools and technologies to do so, as well as making their businesses more intelligent by providing analytic tools so that they can make better decisions more quickly.
Sure. And Whispir, tell us about that.
Yeah, Whispir is a cloud-based communications management platform. We launched in Melbourne in the early 2000s and have been growing steadily for a number of years since then. Our goal is to provide a unified tool that allows anyone to manage their communication processes effectively in the cloud. Anything from triggering SMS notifications through email, voice calls, publishing out to social media, all from one consolidated platform, and then getting reporting and analytics off the back of it.
Now, we're here at the Gartner 2016 APAC Applications Architecture, Development and Integration Summit. As we were saying before we started recording, it's a mouthful, but it's a big developer summit, I guess. And I understand that, Jordan, you were here giving a presentation this morning.
Yeah.
So just give us the wrap on what that was like and how it was received.
Yeah, sure. It was fortunate to be in the big ballroom straight after the keynote this morning, so it was
well attended, no doubt.
Yeah, exactly. It was a talk on our API journey. So we launched an API back in 2012, and it took us a number of years to really get that hitting its stride, and all of the kind of the lessons learned along the way. My goal was to kind of impart some of that knowledge on the people in the audience, especially if they're running an API program or thinking about starting one, and essentially giving some advice. So we got around, just under 100 people attending, so it was a really good turnout.
Excellent, excellent. And no doubt you're both also meeting customers and networking with other colleagues and industry players whilst you're here.
Absolutely, it's been a great conference that way in terms of connecting with customers, potential customers, and educating them a little bit more about what APIs can bring for their organization.
Yeah,
sure.
It's been surprising how many existing customers are actually here already, and they came up and wanted to have a chat and talk about how they're using Whispir, and yeah, it's been really great to hear it directly from the customers that are here.
Excellent. So what is the story of both of your companies working together, and when did that start?
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So in 2012, as I said, was when we started our API program, and as part of any customer launching or anyone really launching an API program, API management is something you need to think about as part of that journey. And from our perspective, the requirements around API management were essentially we wanted to develop a portal where people could register for our API, gather the API documentation and figure out how to use it. And then for us, we wanted a way to easily report on who was using the API, how many API keys were issued, how many usages per day and things like that. So we went out to the market and figured out that there were a bunch of vendors that could offer this capability. We needed it to be done in a relatively short time frame, about 8 weeks, and TIBCO and Whispir were there. They were the right price point and they could meet all of our demands. So we engaged them in 2012 and they worked with us to launch our API in October of that year.
Sure. And to me, I guess this is sort of leading into that same question, but TIBCO claims to have invented the API management space. So for those who may be unaware, what does that mean, and how's the journey been since that time? Clearly there's been competitors that Whispir didn't go to because they could see you had a superior solution.
Yeah, so I mean the API space as we sort of know it today evolved in the early 2000s. So we saw companies like eBay and Amazon starting to launch APIs that really helped them organize their business better and perform the sorts of business activities they were doing in a much better way. And so we saw this trend emerging amongst tech companies in Silicon Valley, and we realized that this trend was not going to be just confined to companies in the technology space, that this is something that could be leveraged by a lot of other companies.
Sure.
But in order to do so, once you start exposing APIs that developers can consume to build their own applications, you want to expose those APIs in a very secure and scalable way. And so that's where the concept of API management came about. And in 2006, when Whispir was born, we were hoping to ride that wave. And sure enough, since that point, we've seen tons of different companies launching APIs, whether it's in the retail space, travel space, financial services. So we've seen this sort of explosion in APIs, and having sort of an API management layer to manage those APIs has become sort of an essential component to that.
Sure, and here we are 10 years later. So in a nutshell, how how has your management of APIs evolved over that time? Clearly things have become a lot more sophisticated. But
I think that's exactly right. One of the ways in which we've noticed that the needs have sort of evolved is that now that it's being adopted by enterprises, the needs within the enterprise become a little bit more sophisticated. And so being able to have different parts of the organization touch that API program, which I think, Jordan noticed and talked about this in his presentation, how the API program really touches all the different parts of the organization. It's not just a technology thing. It touches marketing, it touches finance, it touches all these different.
No, it's not just the IT department's responsibility. It's a whole business thing now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so from that perspective, the needs have evolved, and we've kept up with that sort of evolving need of the enterprise.
Sure. And so, Jordan, how has your API evolved over the past 4 years?
Yeah, exactly what Tameez was saying. We started in 2012, and it was really a project for internal customers to start consuming there. We didn't really launch out to the market. We launched to our existing customer base to see how they would start to use it. We got one customer using it on the second day, and then really, as I was saying in the talk, we saw a first invocation about a month after they started using it. They used it in anger, and it did what it was supposed to do. They'd set up a monitoring tool, and the service that they were monitoring went down, and they sent out a notification to about 200 people to tell them that that service was down. So as the designer of that service, the product manager of it, it was really inspiring to see something that I've designed and built and worked on for a number of years actually being used and working and doing what it was supposed to do.
Absolutely.
So it was an epiphany for a number of parts of our business to see that our product could now be used in a completely different way, and ways that we didn't even envisage it being used were now starting to pop up, and different people could have new conversations about how they could use new parts of our product. So over a number of years, from 2012 to 2016, it's taken a while, and there's been lots of steps on that journey, but we're starting to see critical mass, and it's really growing.
And you must now have companies coming to you saying, help us set this up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so most of our conversations from our sales team to customers now really lead with the API, because we have our existing Whispir platform, which is really fantastic to have drag and drop interfaces for creating templates and designing workflows of communications. But a lot of the time it's another system that actually triggers that workflow, whether it be a monitoring system that's saying something is no longer available, or in the event of maybe a weather event. Let's say it's a really hot day tomorrow, so then that weather event is now triggering a communication out to people to say, potentially, any sort of business.
Be careful, don't come in.
Exactly.
Take precautions, don't drive through, flood waters.
Yeah, exactly.
All that sort of
stuff. Yeah.
And it's using platforms that people don't have to install some special app. It's going straight to SMS or text messages or whatever it might be.
On
so
both sides,
democratizes the ability to communicate in a way that doesn't require WeChat or any of those other sorts of things. Which not everybody has.
That's been most of the market cut through that we've had, being able to deliver all of this content via SMS, and then even being able to pivot from there into a rich web application that you can design directly within the Whispir platform and drag and drop interface, and you can deliver that out.
Sure, but I mean, if there's some end user that's still got a 2G Nokia phone, for example, they can still at least get the information that helps them do what they need to do. Now, guys, I understand that I hear a lot of buzzwords, and I've been to a lot of presentations about digital transformation. Now, this is not something new, really. We've been digitally transforming since the 70s or earlier. I remember, not that I was very old back then, but we had all the teleworking and oil shocks in the 70s, and all those things I spoke about all coming true. But you must be helping companies, Tameez, who come to you, who may not use necessarily the words digital transformation, but want to use APIs in their business, have no idea really what they're doing, or haven't really started yet. And so there must be a good business for you in helping as many of these companies as possible get API'd.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think you are absolutely right when you say that this is nothing new. I think the thing that is new is sort of the realization of the rate of change of business, and
companies
because
have
of
to
technology.
Do it. They have to do
Companies absolutely have to do it, and so they come to us to help guide them through that journey, and there's a number of different ways in which they can help enable their business to be more digital. APIs are one component of that. Having analytics so that you can look at the data within your organization and start making better decisions is another aspect of it. Making sure that your systems are connected so that data can transfer easily between systems, and you can leverage all that information in tandem. Have a single view of your customer, for example. These are all things that companies are now really trying to accelerate their efforts in, and we have the sort of tools, the technology, and the expertise to help them with that.
Sure. And Jordan, is this API the only thing that Whispir is working on, or what are some of the other things that you're also have in development?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, my role within Whispir is product manager, so the API is one of the components that I look after, but I primarily start with API as an entry point. So right now we're really interested in the ability to expose and ingest open data. So things like the weather events that we were talking about before. The ability for customers to be able to configure any number of feeds of data that they want to ingest into the Whispir platform, and then when certain thresholds are passed or certain data elements are present, then trigger out a workflow off the back of that. So this concept of not just having someone log in and click a button to send a message or make an API call.
You want things to be more proactive.
Automatically trigger these notifications. Proactive notifications.
Which helps people be more productive, safer, etc.
Also that and the consolidation of the information. So you might have a weather event, a news story, a dry grass, all of these things are all associated around the same area. So being able to consolidate different feeds of information in one place and then actually make business decisions off the back of that, Whispir really helps you do that.
Sure, and that's very powerful.
Yeah, exactly. It's something we've been wanting to do for a long, long time.
Sure. Anything else you'd like to mention on that front, Tameez?
No, I mean, I think, Whispir is a great example of, the power of APIs and what our customers are able to do with it. And that's why it was really exciting to hear Jordan give his talk this morning, because I think hearing real stories from, real customers showing how it's impacted their business and become more digital as a result is probably the greatest testimonial we could hope for.
Sure. So we've seen how APIs have evolved over the last decade. How do you think that, and longer, but where do you see the market over the next 10 years if we gaze into the crystal ball?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think there's going to be this sort of acceleration in terms of the number of companies who start to realize the value of APIs, and that trajectory is going to continue. We're going to also see sort of emerging fields like the Internet of Things and all these sort of emerging technology
the industrial
areas.
Internet of Things as well. So
absolutely, whether it's industrial, whether it's for home use, whether it's sort of the connected car, we're going to start to see more and more things out there connected. And APIs are going to be a sort of a key component of that because data needs to transfer between these different components of the ecosystem. And so I think we're going to see some really interesting new use cases, and I think the scale of it is going to just explode.
I was thinking it's like the glue, but really it's not glue that sticks things into places like a business lubricant.
Look, what's really exciting for me at the moment is the number of tools that are popping up in the API space to help people get started. Things like Swagger, the code generation tools, the SDK generation tools that are coming out of there. It's amazing that you can get started without a developer. You can document your API and you can generate working code examples of actually that API working in progress. And it's amazing to see that become more and more sophisticated with every iteration of it. So soon enough, it will just be able to generate the stuff out of the box, have it running, and then put it into production. Really,
absolutely. I think Jordan's absolutely right. Now that we've seen this sort of growth of APIs, there's this real focus on the folks who are providing tools around APIs to help make that experience better. So we've evolved from sort of just purely API management to working with companies to say, well, now we have tools to help you create the APIs and liberate them, without any code from your back-end systems, and also manage and distribute it. So the tooling around it to make it easier for customers to do this we're going to see a huge increase in that over the next few years.
Excellent. Now, as we get to the end of the interview, I always like to change gears slightly and just ask if you could both share some great advice you've received over the years that's helped you to get where you are today.
Specifically on APIs, treat your API like a product. So don't think about it like a bolt-on that just kind of sits off to the side. If you think about it like a second-class citizen, then it'll be treated like one, right? If you think about it like it's its own product.
An integrated part of your system.
Yeah, exactly. Like you would any other product that's out there. It needs to be marketed, it needs to have its own brand presence, its own tagline, everything about it. If you treat it like that, then customers will think about it, and more importantly, your internal team will start to think about it, your marketing team will think about it like that, sales, engineering, everyone will start to treat it like that.
And they might have some API they want to share back with you.
Exactly, yeah.
And Tameez?
I think for me, it's probably sort of just following technology trends, because I think what's happening in technology generally right now is really sort of disrupting the way business is done, and these sort of competitive moats that people thought existed before are now sort of being broken down. And so in terms of thinking about how your business is going to look in the future, you really need to look at what are sort of the emerging technologies right now and figure out how you can leverage tools and technology to make your organization more nimble, more agile, to be able to cope with these sort of existential threats that are facing them.
Sure. I mean, I've heard about people saying you need to disrupt yourself before someone else disrupts you.
Yeah.
And that's now a cliche, I guess, but it's very true. It's very, very true.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at companies like Apple, they've
They do that
essentially done
all the
right?
time.
They
all
came
the
out
time.
with the iPod and disrupted it entirely with the iPhone, and you
Yeah.
just constantly need to reinvent yourself and not be afraid of cannibalizing your own business.
Sure, yeah, because as we were saying, if you don't do it, somebody else will, and
Exactly.
then you will regret it.
Yeah.
So, do you have any final messages for iTWire viewers and readers, and for your respective current and future customers?
Yeah.
No, I think the conference here was great. I think I learned a lot. I was able to connect with customers. So, hats off to Gartner for throwing a great conference. I would just invite, those who are interested in learning more to reach out to us. We've been doing this for the past decade. We have a lot of expertise, and we're more than happy to sort of talk to you and help educate you in terms of what APIs can do for your business.
Yeah, and
Jordan?
likewise with communications management, any kind of communications problems, you can visit Whispir.com and we can find out more information there.
Sure. Well, Jordan from Whispir and Tameez from TIBCO, thank you very much.
Thank you.